Welcome to the Deep Dive. We're here to help you cut through the noise and really understand what's going on beneath the surface.
Exactly.
And today, we're diving deep into something pretty significant, a recent statement by Vice President JD Vance.
Oh, yeah, the one about Ukraine talks.
That's the one. He came out and said, quite bluntly, really, that he believes Putin is not at all misleading Trump in Ukraine talks. Suggests, as you know, a real possibility for peace.
Which is, well, quite an optimistic take, given everything.
It is. So our mission today is to unpack that optimism from Vance. But then we need to look at the very different signals coming out of Russia itself.
Like the counter-narrative.
And also see how different media outlets are spinning this. What does it all actually mean for the peace process? It's complicated.
Definitely. Lots of moving parts.
We've got a whole stack of sources here, official comments, news reports from various places, and we're going to pull out the key bits for you so you can see the whole picture.
Or at least a clearer picture.
Right. So this all kicked off after Vance's interview on NBC's Meet the Press. It wasn't just a throwaway line. It really got people talking worldwide.
Understandably so.
Okay, so let's dig into Vance's side first. What did he actually claim? His core point, like I said, was he doesn't think Russia is playing games or stringing President Trump along.
Which is a big assertion of trust, really.
It is. And he backed it up by saying Russia's made, quote, significant concessions for the first time in over 3 years. That's quite specific.
Okay, like what kind of concessions?
Well, two main things he highlighted. First, that Russia seems to accept it can't just install a puppet government in Kyiv anymore.
That would be a major shift from their initial aims, if true.
Right. And second, he suggested Russia is actually open to security guarantees for Ukraine's territorial integrity.
Another potentially huge point. Security guarantees are central.
Exactly. Vance stressed he sees these talks proceeding in good faith. And he also made sure to add that the U.S. president still holds a lot of cards, leverage basically, even without a ceasefire yet.
What's fascinating here, and really makes you pause, is thinking about the implications if. And it's a big if these concessions are actually real.
Yeah.
I mean, a major power admitting it can't achieve a key war aim like installing a puppet regime, that's not just tweaking tactics. That's potentially a fundamental strategic rethink.
A big deal.
A very big deal. It suggests Moscow might be realizing its maximalist goals are maybe out of reach militarily. And the security guarantees part, again, if genuine, it moves beyond just talk towards maybe, possibly, a different strategic endgame for Russia.
So it could signal a real diplomatic opening.
It could. It hints at a reevaluation of what's achievable, which just might unlock a more serious diplomatic path than we've seen for a while.
Okay, but.
Yeah.
And there's always a but, isn't there?
Almost always in these situations.
So as Vance laid out this, surprisingly hopeful view, we got a very different message coming straight from Moscow. It was almost like listening to two separate realities.
Right. The Russian perspective entered the chat, so to speak.
And it came from Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov on the same show, which makes the contrast even starker. What did he have to say?
Well, let's hear it.
Lavrov's comments were, well, let's just say less rosy. He clearly downplayed prospects for a summit between Russia and Ukraine. No high-level meeting anytime soon was the message.
So pouring cold water on the idea of immediate progress.
Pretty much. And crucially, he repeated that any meeting like that needs an agreed agenda first, adding pointedly, none is ready.
The precondition tactic. It implies there's no real common ground to even discuss yet.
Exactly. It's not just logistics. And maybe the biggest point, he implicitly questions Zelensky's legitimacy again.
That old chestnut, undermining the person you'd need to negotiate with.
Right. It casts a huge shadow over the whole idea of direct talks with Kyiv's current leadership. It feels like a built-in excuse to stall or derail things.
This really highlights the disconnect, doesn't it? Vance is talking good faith, concessions. Lavrov sounds skeptical, sets up roadblocks, and questions the other side's authority.
Complete opposites.
It's more than just mixed messaging. You could argue it's a deliberate strategy. Setting free conditions, questioning legitimacy.
Yeah.
These things create really shaky ground for peace.
How so?
Well, think about it. If you don't even acknowledge the legitimacy of the leader you're supposed to be negotiating with, how can you have credible talks? This is a fundamental obstacle.
Right, it challenges the very basis for negotiation.
Exactly. It could be Lavrov managing expectations back home, or maybe just trying to avoid actual commitments while looking like they're open to discussion. Either way, it makes it incredibly hard for you listening to all this to figure out if there's genuine willingness for peace or just diplomatic maneuvering.
Okay, so we have Vance's optimism, Lavrov's caution and conditions.
Huh?
How did the media handle this? As you'd expect, everyone seemed to interpret it a bit differently.
Yeah, the media filter is always fascinating to watch. It shows how these signals get processed and presented back to us.
Let's look at a few examples. The Times and the Times of India, for instance, they really focused on Vance's points about Russia maybe recognizing Ukraine's sovereignty and ditching the puppet regime idea.
So they leaned into the optimistic angle.
Pretty much, yeah. Echoed Vance's take, highlighted the potential breakthrough, focusing on the hope.
Which audiences often want to hear, understandably.
Then you had the Washington Post. They took a slightly broader view, focusing on Vance's belief that the U.S. can still broker peace, that there are hopeful signs, but they were maybe a bit more cautious. Acknowledged progress was limited.
A bit more balanced, perhaps, still emphasizing the U.S. role.
Kind of. Then, the Sun newspaper, they were quite bold. Flat out stated Russia has abandoned its ambition for a puppet regime.
Wow, okay. That's distilling it down quite a bit, turning ambiguity into a definitive statement.
Right. That's what headlines often do, isn't it? Gives readers a sense of clarity, even if the reality is murky.
True. It satisfies that need for a clear narrative.
But then you get a publication like The Independent. They actually praised Vance for mentioning Trump's energetic diplomacy, but, and this is key, they also noted inconsistencies.
So they picked up on the Lavrov side, too.
Exactly. They pointed out that Russian officials were questioning any near-term meeting, setting preconditions, basically aligning with Lavrov's cautious stance.
That's important context.
Yeah.
Showing both sides of that coin.
Definitely. And finally, just to show the full spectrum, an opinion piece in the New York Post took a really sharp, critical view, called Putin's behavior disingenuous, even trolling.
Okay, so shifting from reporting to strong opinion.
Yeah, and warning about potential U.S. responses like sanctions or more military aid. It's aiming to persuade, reflecting a specific viewpoint, pushing back hard against the optimistic narrative.
So if you step back and look at all these different media takes, what does it tell us?
What do you think it tells us?
Well, I think it paints a really clear picture of how polarized the information landscape is, especially around conflicts like this. It's not just what was said, but how it gets framed.
Right. The emphasis changes everything.
Some outlets clearly amplify the hope, maybe reflecting a desire for peace, maybe a political leaning. Others stay skeptical, focusing on past Russian actions or their own editorial line.
So the challenge for the listener, for you, is huge.
Absolutely. It shows why you simply cannot rely on one source. You have to seek out multiple perspectives to even begin to grasp the nuances, especially when the stakes are this high. A single viewpoint just won't cut it.
And amidst all this back and forth, this diplomatic signaling and media interpretation, something else popped up. A specific detail from Vance's interview that drew quite a bit of fire.
Oh, what was that?
It was what some called a historical misstatement.
Okay.
The Daily Beast reported on it. Vance apparently cited World War II as ending through negotiation.
No.
Yeah, kind of ignoring the whole unconditional surrender part, which was pretty central to how WWII actually concluded, particularly in Europe and against Japan.
Yikes. That's not a minor detail when you're talking about ending major wars.
Right. It got noticed.
Analyzing that, it's significant. Because historical accuracy isn't just, trivia in these discussions. It shapes how we think about resolving current conflicts.
How so?
Well, saying WWII ended in negotiation completely misrepresents it. The Allies demanded unconditional surrender, no negotiation on terms, just surrender. It was a total capitulation imposed by the victors.
Very different from a negotiated peace treaty between equals.
Totally different. So by misstating that, Vance's comment doesn't just, frankly, undermine his credibility on historical precedent. It also kind of diverts from the tough reality.
What do you mean?
It sort of implies, perhaps unintentionally, that big wars always end with everyone sitting down for a nice chat and finding middle ground. But history shows that's often not the case, especially when core issues like sovereignty or regime survival are at stake. Sometimes conflicts end through exhaustion, collapse, or, yes, unconditional surrender.
So a flawed historical analogy could lead to flawed thinking about current peace prospects.
Precisely. It overlooks the potential necessity for outcomes, other than a purely negotiated settlement, depending on the conflict's nature. It's a reminder that the details, especially historical ones, really matter in these high-stakes conversations.
Okay, so let's try and pull all these threads together from our deep dive. It's been quite a journey through different perspectives.
Definitely a lot to unpack.
We started with VP Vance and his surprisingly optimistic take on the talks. Genuine concessions from Russia, good faith, all that.
Followed immediately by the counterpoint from Russia's Lavrov, much more guarded, steadying conditions, questioning Zelensky.
Then we saw how the media sliced and diced all this, giving us everything from hopeful headlines to deep skepticism and sharp criticism.
Right, a whole spectrum of interpretations.
And finally, that historical stumble about World War II, which added another layer of complexity and scrutiny.
So what does it all boil down to for you, the listener, trying to make sense of this? I think it means you're looking at a classic case of mixed messaging, very mixed, and honestly pretty shaky ground for peace right now.
Shaky ground is a good way to put it.
Vance's optimism about Russian flexibility.
Yeah.
It sounds hopeful, but it gets seriously undercut by Lavrov's public stance and, maybe more importantly, the lack of any concrete, verifiable agreements yet. We just don't see the proof on the ground.
It highlights that gap between rhetoric and reality.
Exactly. And this whole situation really drives home why knowledge is powerful, but only when you understand its context and apply critical thinking. You can't just grab one statement and run with it.
So why should you care about sorting through all this, these conflicting signals, the media spin?
Because understanding this stuff empowers you. It helps you see the nuances of international diplomacy, how information gets presented or sometimes manipulated.
Right.
It equips you to look critically at everything you read or hear, whether it's an official statement, a news report, or an opinion piece. We're not telling you what conclusion to draw.
No, absolutely not.
But we want to help you build the skills to form your own more informed, more balanced perspective on these really important global events. Understanding how to assess the information is key.
Well said. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the really complex narratives around potential Ukraine peace talks. It's definitely not simple.
Far from it.
And your engagement, your willingness to look deeper is what really makes the difference between just hearing the news and actually being well informed.
Absolutely.
So as you go about your day, here's a final thought to chew on. In a world where information about huge global events like this can be filtered, spun, sometimes even just plain wrong, whether it's through optimistic takes, historical errors, or critical attacks, how do you make sure you're getting the clearest, most accurate picture possible?
It's a constant challenge.
It really is. Think about how vital it is to actively seek out different viewpoints, to question the assumptions behind them, and, crucially, to try and verify the basic facts before you settle on your own understanding. Relying on just one narrative, well, it's risky. That active search for a fuller picture, that's what being truly well-informed is all about. We'll connect again on the next deep dive.